My name is Emily Boodle, and I'm going to talk to you about what it looks like when a pregnancy ends, whether you are having a termination for medical reasons or you're experiencing the miscarriage at home. Maybe you're going to the hospital. There are certain rules and boundaries in BC around what will happen next. The key time that we're looking at is under 20 weeks gestation and under 500 grams in weight. So if your pregnancy is ending, and that is the stage that you are at, this is what happens in BC. If you are in the hospital, then you will be likely offered the opportunity to have the remains tested in a lab to figure out if there are abnormalities or to determine what the cause of the miscarriage was. This is not a guarantee, it's just something that might happen. If you're at home and you have a miscarriage, then you may decide to take the remains into the hospital and request these results from the lab. Whether you decide to do that or you decide that you don't want the testing done, those remains from a funeral, from a death worker perspective, they are not registered as a stillbirth. So what that means is they are not then required to have a burial or cremation take place in a formal cemetery or crematorium. If the remains are being held at the hospital after testing, you can make the request to have those released to you directly. The same way that someone might request a placenta after a live birth to have that tissue released to them. This is not something that is maybe standard at the hospital, so it may require a bit of self-advocacy if you want that to happen. If you decide to work with a funeral home, which might be something that they're a bit more used to, then you would go to the funeral home and have that meeting and request to have those remains released to the funeral home. However, again, you are not required to do that. And so you can request to have the remains released to you, or in the case of a miscarriage at home or elsewhere in the community, you will have those remains with you anyhow. Caveat, sometimes very early in a pregnancy, if someone's miscarried at home, they may have done so in the washroom and they may have flushed and they may not have those remains. I just want to normalize that this absolutely happens and that there are other folks out there who may feel one way or another about the fact that this did happen. But the key is to know that you are not alone in that experience and that if you are looking for support, there is support out there. I'm going to link to a whole pile of resources that are really qualified to talk about some of the really challenging intricacies that happen with a miscarriage or with multiple miscarriages. If you have made the request to take the remains home, and so now you find yourself, maybe you're released from the hospital very early on, often remains will be in a bucket. If they're very small, like our little ones, they're water creatures, and so they're kept in a bucket with all those fluids, and that's actually just a way to kind of keep them in the state that they are in. Um, if it's a little bit farther along, then they may be released in kind of a little packet, wrapped, and um, either way, you would then have those to take home. Um, and what you can do is you can choose how you would like to lay them to rest. So if you decide to go to a funeral home or cemetery, they may require a letter from your primary physician or from a physician saying that this was a miscarriage and that they will list your name, your partner's name, the parents, um, and they will say yes, this occurred and this is the family name, and that's basically just a document that is in lieu of having a stillbirth certificate or a death certificate. Um, they can then proceed with a cremation or a burial. You are not required to do that. You could also choose to find maybe a park that's meaningful to you, or maybe an area, a body of water. You could very gently shroud those remains in a natural fiber shroud, or place them in a small box, a small paper box, or a small woven basket. And you could do that burial. You could dig a hole, maybe a foot and a half, and then do that burial on your own property. And there's no legal requirement to report that. Um, the reality is that they're so small that they're not going to have a huge impact on the environment. They're going to be able to return to the elements in a pretty um, gentle way, and it won't take very long. So, if that is something that feels more comfortable to you, that you want to take control of that aspect of the process, then by all means, know that you can make the request to the hospital to release remains to you or to keep them at home if you choose not to go to the lab. So that is a little bit about what you can do after the loss of a pregnancy or child under 20 weeks or under 500 grams of weight. And if you have questions about that or someone you know is going to be having this experience, then you can book a call with me down below, or you can send me an email and I'm happy to answer as many questions as you might have. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you online, and I hope that you don't need my services, but if you do, you now know where to find me. Thank you.